Outer Orange.
Set 13. We got our Youthbergs and our Leonorns and our Jewels, but you know, we don't have the rest of the decks. That's what I'm here to talk about. Let's go ahead and get started. Previous year. So I have here with me in front of us some decks that I'll be building or upgrading, and I want to share them with you. They are not your typical decks, except for maybe this one right in front of us, which is Zorga, but I just wanted to kind of venture out at some other decks outside of those, because I'm not gonna lie, unlike the rest of the world, I actually am not very interested in Youthberg or Leonorn or Jeweled or Java. There's just none of the decks really spoke to me. So actually this was going to be a sleeper set for me, and I was just kind of skip over it and just sort of just focus on upgrading decks more so than completely buying new decks. So I'm one of those people. If you're one of those people, then you can check out what I've been testing and maybe you're interested in it too. I will say some of these lists are not perfect. They're experimental, so you know, bear with me. Alden is on here. I know Alden is a very under discussed topic, so I have a general list that I'm working with, and you can kind of bounce ideas off with me in the comments below. So don't forget to do all that. If you need any cards, guys, don't forget to shop at 50cards.shop, code orange for all your goodies. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna start with Zorga. I think Zorga is probably the easiest to upgrade if you already have everything. So this is Mask Zorga for set 13. We added this guy, kind of lower the ratios for other stuff. I'm personally really excited for this. I think this card's insane. This is Philander. Basically, when he's placed on rear from hand, you go to the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, discard it, and shuffle your deck. So it's just a straight up selective mill. And then during your turn, if you have 10 or more and drop, he becomes an 18k beater. He gets plus 10k. Really awesome stuff. So he basically just helps you deck thin. I'm really big into deck thinning with this deck. I think deck thinning is just insane, and any value that you can get out of deck thinning, you should utilize on it between this guy now, and then obviously the Mythiarch promo, which is this, and then also the mask. So I gotta usually alchemagic between this and this a lot, and then use my power gaining off of this as like the main go-to. I think this deck got even more consistent now with this additions. This list isn't perfect. This is pretty close to my old list with the exception of this being added, and obviously I run the L width. I might bump the L width to 3 and bump something else down, but I'm not 100% set on that yet. I'll see how I'm feeling. Order line up here has been basically the same since this card has dropped. I have yet to change it because I'm just so confident in like playing it like this. Like, to me, this just makes sense to me. Other people are obviously running some other orders, and that's perfectly fine. By the way, you do you. I love this costless order combination here. It means any Current Blast or Soap Blast I use is all just off of the effects of cards I call, and I just don't have to stress out over being a resource denied or being stuck with resources because or not being able to alchemagic for whatever reason. It's all just right here in front of me. I can alchemagic all day, all night, as long as I have a deck and as long as I have cards to alchemagic with. So this is what I've been vibing with, and you can show me your list, you know, what you've been vibing with. But so far, this is what I'm testing. It's been really fun so far, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So that's Zorga. More like interesting decks, I guess, from here on out. So I think every deck from here is like a little bit more underground. This is Mushi King. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I have no idea what this does. All I know is that I can give orders to my units, and then these units can then attack with these said orders using some of these effects or whatever. I haven't tested this yet because I'm actually waiting for my cards to come in. I'm showing you guys a list because this is a direct list from over in Japan. One of the lists was one of their lists. I just basically converted over to an English list. I use FuzzyParadox.com for this. You could also go to FuzzyParadox.com, look up Mushi King on the Japanese side, and do the exact same thing I did. There is a ton of lists. This is a more recent one. The only difference between this list and the list that I used was that the list I used had the new Regalius piece, and they had one less mushroom in their list, but everything else was basically the exact same. So you can also do the same thing I did and just kind of see what this does. I haven't tested it yet, so this is definitely a work in progress. I know for a fact that this Mushi King is pretty solved, but you know, maybe there's something else out there, maybe something that others haven't tried. I don't know, but I'm gonna test it out, see how the deck works, and kind of go from there, see if there's anything I could change about it and make it stronger. Vanguard, another more underground deck, I would say, not as popular. So this one I have been testing. I'm still kind of messing with the ratios, but I wanted to show you guys. Vanguard, I got this new grade 3 right here, and it is very awesome as it basically lets you restand. I just think it's really cool because it copies all the effects, and it's like a multi-attacking thing, and you just got you get a little like power and all this stuff. So I think it's just a cool added annoyance. I have noticed the only downside of how this deck so far is that I deck out. So I'm really hoping now with the added pressure of a restanding Vanguard, basically it's a rewriting Vanguard, so it's not necessarily a restand, but you know what I mean. The new dude, maybe this deck can kill faster now. It kind of feels more like Fertia, which I really like because, you know, the Fertia has the extra drive check. This is basically the extra drive check. You do have to discard quite a bit for it. It was a little painful here, so you have to be careful with that discard cost, you know, be cautious, but you do draw a lot. Like the main Vanguard draws, and then you draw the cyclers, and then, you know, you surprisingly enough do draw quite a bit. And yeah, basically basically I'm running it like this. Some people cut out the order. I still kept it in because I'm running the cyclers. If you're running some of the grade 3s or whatever, then maybe you can, you know, to drop this order, play something else. I like it like this so far. It's been very convenient. I also really like this new grade 1 as it directly gets you to get Vanguardas back to hand, so you can actually pitch Vanguardas and then just get them back to hand. So very convenient. And also, if I'm not mistaken, choose a grade 3. Oh, you can actually, I just realized this now, but you can actually grab this guy himself. I didn't realize he was also an Vanguarda himself. For some reason, I thought he had a completely different name, but you can actually grab this guy as well. So you can pitch him and then bring back to hand, and then use his effect to then basically re-ride and bind this guy and have your extra drive check. So that's actually really cool. Be very cautious of the counterblast. This deck does go through CV quite a bit now with this guy as well. So just something to kind of keep on a lookout for. We're still running the best girl. This girl's awesome, and in this deck especially. But yeah, I think Vanguard is actually pretty strong. Luckily enough, this is a very easy deck to upgrade. That you really just are adding 2 cards and just kind of moving around some ratios. You're not really like directly buying a brand new deck if you already own the deck. So I just thought this was a really cool thing to kind of go over. So that's Vanguard. Next we have Alden. Now I'm gonna be real with y'all. I'm not a Keter main, so please do not hurt me when you see this list. Don't hurt me. I swear, I'm innocent. I am innocent. I don't know what I'm doing. I only play PBO, so I kind of just put cards together that I thought sounded cool, and this is what I created. And I will say, I'm already looking at it the last couple days. I've already seen one change I want to make, and I actually want to make this into something else. You really don't need this card. I don't think you need it anyway, and I'm thinking about making a drilling angel or something like that, something along the lines of that instead of this. So this is definitely the one card that I'm probably gonna move around a little bit. Everything else I'm pretty comfortable with so far. So basically this is Alden. He's a new guy. He can counter blast, soap blast. You could choose a grade 3 OS card from hand, call it. If you do, draw 2 cards, so it's just a direct +1, and it's really cool. And then when it attacks, if you have 3 or more rear guards with different grades, you can soap blast, choose one of your rear guards returned to hand, and then you can choose up to 2 cards with a total sum of their grades being less than or equal to the original grade returned, and call them into the same column basically. So basically you call a bunch of cards, you draw a bunch of cards, then you bounce 1 and call more. And you guys gotta be careful how you're calling with the column situation. It's a little weird because you have to call to a column, but it says choose up to. So if you have like a restanding one, you know, like that one, there's like that one grade 3 that says if your persona it like restands itself or whatever, so you can keep that in the back, you know, bounce 1, call 1. It says choose up to, so you don't have to call exactly 2, you can call 1, but usually resetting a column sounds better, but I don't know, it's kind of up to you depending on how you do your stuff. So I'm running it like this, kind of figuring out. Here's the ride line. The ride line basically just lets you, as you keep revealing different grades, you can check top 5 and call cards, and these both do the same thing. I'm kind of still iffy if I want this to be my ride line for what, like PBO instead, like the PBO Shadow Paladin ride line. By that I mean Blaster Dark. Maybe that ride line might be a little more consistent than this. I want to try this out first, see how I feel about it, and if I hate it, I'll go back to something else, like maybe a Maple type of Thegria approach with the grade 1 and grade 2, and then just kind of go from there. But I'll see. But anyways, that's that. This new guy, he gets boost if you have an Alden. Alden is card name. It could be rearguard or Vanguard, by the way, so it doesn't have to be necessarily a Vanguard. That's why I thought about the Alden in here, and I was like, kind of like, you don't really need him. But basically, at the end of the battle that he attacked or boosted, you could put another rearguard the same column as him to soul. Choose one of your units with all this card to get plus 10k. So ideally, what you could do with him is you can swing with the column, shove him in, shove the thing in front of it in, bounce him back, and then recall something else. And you could also give 10k to your van, making your Vanguard just way more obnoxious to guard. You can do this multiple times, by the way. Just keep cautious of the effect of him because he does have a very specific effect that says you do have to have 3 or more different rear guards in the card name. So keep in mind, you do have to keep track of the 1s, 2s, and 3s, or 0s if you call 0s for whatever reason. Raw power just says when he's placed. If you have a unit with Alden's card name is 5k. If he's placed through a card ability, he gets 15k. So he's a 25k beater, 35k persona. And then with a boost like this, he becomes really high. He becomes like 48. So it's really nice little beefer. I run this card just like a flex slot. I don't know what to put in here. I was actually looking at another card that was funny. There's actually a funny card that can force your opponent to deck out. I believe, I can't remember if it's a may or must, but there's a card that tells your opponent to draw. And since you can bounce and recall with the Alden, I was actually thinking, I was like, is there a shot at actually decking your opponent out? You know, Martoa just got banned, but it would be really funny if we could reconsider bringing Martoa back, you know, like, but just in standard. You know, I think that'd be a great idea. It'd be even funnier if we just brought her back in a different context. Let me find, funnily enough, it's this card right here. So this one says when this is placed on rearguard circle, you can still blast, choose one of your opponent's rearguards put to bottom of the deck, and then your opponent draws a card. So you can use her twice, so you gotta force your opponent to draw 2 cards. And since Alden does bounce and recall, you can bounce and recall her. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I just think it's funny. Put this card instead because I think this is more important towards specific matchups. This one says you can Cow Blast, discard a card from hand. We'll talk about the discard, by the way. It's very important. But you choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and your opponent puts all those cards from the rear and drop at the same card name as the card chosen to bomb their deck in any order. So a good example is like Zorga, bomb deck all their prison dragons, force them to have to search them out again, stuff like that. And actually, another thing to kind of, while I'm on this topic of bottom decking, I've actually thought about putting bottom decking cards into Alden because, fun fact, there's a lot of bottom decking cards that are not very restrictive to what their Vanguard is, and I've actually thought about making an entire bottom decking Alden list, but the downside to it is like there's that new Regale's piece that comes out that says you can't target stuff, so this instantly just falls off really quickly, but it's a cool concept. I run this card as well. This is it's an Alden card. She has 2K power, and then if you have a Vanguard called Alden's card name, you can discard a card and counter charge. You might be wondering, why are you running discard cards? Well, I run this funny card right here called Wayward Therapy Angel, so you can just use her, so whenever you discard with her off of basically this card or off of this card, she comes right back out, and she's a great one. And I don't know, I thought 10k beater seemed kind of fun in this deck, and you can call it a back row. You can then bounce her back later if you want. I just thought this was interesting. Of course, you know, you have to be on grade 3 or greater for her to really fully abuse her, but I just thought it was an interesting concept. This deck does counter blast a lot, so using her and her just sounds like a really good idea. You know, you call her out, use the ability to counter charge, and then bring this card out to then Soul Blast and call her out. And I think that's a really good way to get grade 1s on the board while also getting your resources back. So I thought it was kind of interesting. So that's that. I run 2 of the cat. You can run something else in here. It doesn't have to be the cat. I did have a little trouble with the grade 1 slot too. It's a little funky. There's a couple like funny cards you can run, but it's nothing too crazy. But you can also just remove this and add some of these cards. Keep in mind, you do want your ratios to be kind of a little even. They don't have to be perfect, but you want them to be even just because of the ride line. It does ask for different grades, and Alden asks for different grades, so you do want to keep track of that. So make sure you're not like running like 15 grade 1s and then only like 4 grade 2s or something. Like, you know, make sure it's a little balanced because then it'll be really hard to like make these pop off. I think that's it with the main deck, and then, you know, obviously triggers. I'm running the red OT, and oh yeah, I do run this funny card. I just think this card's good. It just says discard a card from hand. The main thing about her is you choose use being attacked and you get plus 5k, and then you choose 4. You choose up to 4 heals that call in the guard circle. It's just a really high amount of shield. You basically just can call these out if you really feel like you need it. This is like a very solid 60k power, 60k shield that you could just work with. It's basically another OT guard, and I just think it's very useful. So I like this card. It's a grade 2 as well. Kind of adds to, as I was saying earlier, the grade 2 slot's kind of weird to cards in, so you know, I like it. You don't have to run this card. You can put something else in here. I just really like it. I think it's a great card. I think I feel like you just want to run it just because it's a funny card. I think you don't want draws as much. I think you want the fronts, since you get to recall column anyway, so you know your front row would be there. And then you got the usual, the 8 crits and 4 heals. And that's basically it. I run the red OT. I don't think cat OT is very good. I think blue OT is fine. I think it's more of just what your preference is. I think you could also run the Crayon Elemental one. But yeah, that's basically the Alden deck. I don't, like I said, this is probably the deck I know the least amount of information on. Actually, the next deck I'm not really too smart on either. But this one's definitely an experimental thing. It's an experiment for me, more so than anything else, because there's literally no information about this deck. There's just 0. There's like, I know one other person, but someone that's read the card and actually started testing it somewhat, and that's Curly. But he's like he's literally the only person I can think of or that I've seen mention a single thing about this card. I haven't seen anyone talk about this card, so that's why that's what's inspired me to make this video, is because of this deck. I was like, wow, I don't really want to make a whole video on it, but I do want to talk about this deck. This would be perfect. So here we are. Next we have Unica, and as you can see, it's Unica in question marks. A lot of question marks, because I'm not gonna lie, this card is kind of bad. It's not bad, probably maybe another deck, but it's pretty bad in here. I try to make it work, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm probably gonna cut this out and just not make this a mask generated deck. But anyway, so I've been testing Unica for a while, and not for a while, for the last like couple weeks, I want to say, and it's actually pretty interesting with the mask in mind. But I'm not gonna lie, this card does not make this deck any better. I thought maybe this 10k would, but no, it's just you have to be on mask for this to activate, and sometimes you're just not on mask, sometimes you're just on this one, and it's just weird. I'm not really a fan of it. I kind of like the original style of Unica, like just this version of Unica where you just have this as your main approach, and maybe the chalice or something. I like this better than the mask variation, but this has the restand on it, and it's just so hard to know. But this one has the crit. You know, I have this issue with Unica that have a Gravidia. It's like you have to give up the crit and the drive. So you can get the drive here, but you have to remove the other one for it. You have to give up a lot of pressure just to have like a restand, and Gravidia has the same issue. You have to give up pressure for just a multi-attack, and I don't know if it's worth it. I really don't know if it's worth it, but Maybe it is. I'm gonna keep testing with this is definitely a list that I'm feeling very shaky on. I'm not really a fan of the double Unica approach. I'm thinking about pushing this to 4, having this 1, removing this, and maybe putting her in. This is the new card. This one says if you have a Vanguard that's grade 3 or greater with Emma Stir in his card name, you can counterblast and draw a card. And then for every 2, for this unit gets 5k power for every 2 triggers new binds, which actually isn't bad. I'm running this right now, obviously because of the mask stuff, but I'm gonna be real. I might just put this up. Sure, you can give me your thoughts below how you feel about it. It is definitely a weird deck to build right now. I just feel like the mask stuff just doesn't work. At least with the current support. If there's like some kind of support that would make it work better, then maybe. But at least with what we have with set 13, it's really weird and it's definitely not very useful, and I'm not a fan of it. So I will say I'm trying. I really am. I like the deck, but I like the deck with the pure version more. I still think this card is just so much better in every single way. It also draws you cards. I don't know. I think this card lets you see a lot more of your deck as you're like putting triggers into soul and you're drawing cards. I don't know. I just think this card's just better. I'm very surprised when I see lists like cut this out or something. I'm like, and I don't know. The gunning range is just really good. I just think you want to draw. This deck doesn't draw that well, so you need the draw engine. So I think this right here is just very impactful. I also think this card's like pretty cracked too. Just using triggers and putting them into soul, just keep your soul going and all that stuff. But alas, you guys can tell me your thoughts below. These are the 5 decks that I'm upgrading and messing around with the most. That's all I have for this video. I just want to share with you guys my decks. If you have decks that you're currently messing around with, feel free to let me know below what those are, and you can tell me about it. Tell me what you're experimenting with. What is your favorite deck out of set 13 that includes old decks that got upgraded? Whatever it is, let me know below what your thoughts are. I always love to hear them. I like to listen to them, so feel free to let me know that. Other than that, guys, I'm gonna end it here. Hope you guys enjoyed my little video talking about random decks, and yeah, peace out, guys. Das vidanios. See you guys in a future video. Bye.